Hey up everybody and welcome back. So this week I have a couple of little things to tidy up. I've done a couple of them, but this is the big job. As I say, that big gap up there has annoyed the hell out of me, so what I'm going to do is lower that. Also going to have a go at the clutch, because you may remember the clutch is really heavy, and I just had a 63 C15 in for a friend of mine. I'll tell you something about that when we start looking at this, but his clutch was, I mean, it was fine. And I've checked this, I've got the clutch cable disconnected and the clutch cable seems flexible because it goes in right behind here. It's not like the later BSAs and the later C15s even, where it's up on the top with an arm. It goes down by the chain and across the engine and in behind here. It's got a very nasty bend in it. Seems stupid. Alright, so that's what we're going to work on. And as I said, there's a couple of little things I wanted to get out of the way this week so that we can get stuck in and get started on our next project, which I think you'll find interesting. I'm looking forward to doing it, and well, you'll find out all about that. So first of all, let's look at the couple of things I did, actually Sunday. I was fiddling around Sunday. So let's look at that. So first thing I did was I put that new Venhill cable that I got from InMotion. Actually, as always, there was a slight glitch to that, but first of all, that has cured that problem. So it must have been making that cable up with the material from Barnet. I don't know why. It was a very flexible inner. It's nylon lined outer. But yeah, I mean, I took this out for a quick ride round and it's just so smooth in its operation. So that was fine. But I bought the cables, as I say, they're made by Venhill. And they're specifically to go from this T80/200 Amel twist grip to a concentric. But they're obviously designed to go to a concentric with the screw-in adjuster on the top of the carb. And the Premier, I don't know if it's an option one way or the other, but the one I have is the type that has the little top hat that goes into the carb. So I had to put a piece in here. But anyway, it all worked. That is just fine. I'm pleased with that. Alright, next job I did. So the next job wasn't as successful. It's on the B50. Now, actually today's Tuesday because I was busy yesterday. But since I finished last week's video, which I think was Saturday morning. Yes, it was Saturday morning. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all 3 days, I've at least come out here and a couple of times I've started this. And everything seems fine, you know. Compression's there, I use the decompressor first, the second kick it starts. I took the carb off and the needle was actually in the top notch. So I raised it a notch and that's cleared the hesitancy. It rides much better. So, Speedo, as you may remember, didn't work. So I thought, okay, all the people who mentioned that it wouldn't work under the headlamp, perhaps they were right and I was wrong again. So I moved it and put it here because I was thinking of making a bracket that used these mounting bolts. Still didn't work. So I wondered, was it this metal cross piece here? So I mounted it up on here. Still didn't work. Then the tatty bit of paper that passes for the instructions seemed to suggest that if this was mounted on metal, it would shield the GPS. So I put it on a piece of, well, it's a phenolic board, like a circuit board. Still didn't work. So have I just got a duff GPS one? I'll have a look, make sure the connections are still fine. I mean, the little light comes on inside it and it's got a readout which is sort of a count up. I haven't checked to see if it's seconds. I think it is. It says COG. I don't know what COG stands for in this. But anyway, it doesn't work. So I'm going to have to fiddle around and just possibly, I can't remember how much I paid for this, I don't think it was a lot. So I might have to get one, the more expensive ones. Actually, when I did a search, you know, like 10 best GPS Speedos, one came up and they were all $300 and odd a piece. Well, I'm not spending like $340. What's that at the moment? £280, I don't know. But a lot of money. So the other ones which seem to have good ratings, well, I'll tell you something about that in a second as well, we're around the $80 mark. So £50, £60. So if I don't find something that I haven't screwed up, well, there was only a couple of wires for the power, which seems to work, and the only other thing was actually screwing in that sort of coaxial cable. But I'll check all that. Who knows? If not, I'll buy one. Right, the thing I was going to mention, so this is something to bear in mind about internet reviews. I have been getting emails recently from people saying, you know, I'm in Richford, or automotive dealers in Richford, get top reviews. In other words, I can buy online reviews for people who I have no idea who they are. So obviously there's a new way of earning money out there. You sit at home and you write fake reviews, so be careful of reviews. Right, let's get over to our C15. Now, a chap I know was actually involved in a local car museum, and I did a bit of work on a B25 for him a while ago, and he very kindly took me and 3 friends on a guided tour of the museum. So he phoned me up at it. He bought himself a 63 C15. Couldn't get it to run. So he brought it along and all he'd done was tidy it up. So anyway, it was ignition timing and a couple of other things. So I sorted them out, but when I started kicking the engine over to see if it was giving me a spark and stuff, I noticed it had an oil leak. It was actually on the right hand side and it was just underneath the oil tank. So I thought, oh, I just presume that there isn't a clip on here as tight as it should be. So anyway, when I got it running, it started to, no, it didn't just drip, it was coming out. So I switched it off and I came around to look at it. And the chap he bought this bike off, here you can see is the rocker feed. Now, as you know, with the BSAs and the Triumphs, the rocker feed isn't a pressure feed, it's actually a scavenge. In other words, the pressure of the oil going back to the oil tank is just tapped on its route, and that little bypass is used to come up to the rockers. On the later BSAs, it's down, it's actually right down on the bottom of the engine. As the pipe comes out, going to the oil tank, there's a little offshoot, much smaller size, and that goes to the rockers. But these C15s, like the Triumphs, the oil pipe comes up to the oil tank, and where it goes into the oil tank, it's actually a T. So if you imagine it coming up to go into the oil tank, on the top here, there's a little takeoff. Now also on the oil tank, right at the very top in the airspace, is a vent. So whoever had this bike before, when I looked, had the vent connected to the rocker feed. And this pipe coming off the T-piece down there was just hanging down like a vent. So as I pointed out to my friend, it's a good job you couldn't get it started, because if you'd gone off for a ride on this, it wasn't getting any oil. Well, 2 things. It wasn't getting any oil to the rockers, and also it was pumping your oil out onto the ground. So couldn't get over that. The other thing was actually where he had the rubber pipe going, had it coming through here where this piece of, can you see this? Yeah. Where this part of the battery box covering everything is close to the frame. Pardon me. And he jammed it in there. Well, he put it there and then put this on, and it was squished up tight anyway. Frog in my throat. So even if he'd had it on the right feed, there wouldn't have been any oil going through. Anyway, I just thought I'd tell you that because I thought it was interesting when I found it. So here is the job. we are going to drop this down to just above here. We'll do some measurements and everything. I've made a couple of rough measurements, as you can see. So, how are we going to do it? Well, I've already started taking all the electronics off because I want to at least tack this in situ, and I don't want any electronics connected because we're going to use the frame as the earth. I don't want any electronics connected to that. So I'm actually going to take them all off. The only thing that will still be on the engine is the sort of alternator unit, the generator down there, and the wires to that won't be connected to anything. So we should be fine. Alright, now this subframe is bolted on. And we've got to get this right. So what I've decided to do is bolted. Hang on. Give you a complete picture. There. So it's bolted down here and it's bolted up here. Now these uprights on both sides, you can't see it, are actually used to mount the oil tank and the battery box. So, and this also has this on it. So both tubes are actually held, and here they're held where they should be, so we're going to use that. What we're going to do is we're going to drop this. It's about 1.25 inches. I'm going to show you all the measurements in a second. So we're going to drop this from there to there. Right, so we're going to cut it off, as I say, while it's on the frame, because it's all held nicely in place. We're going to cut this plate part here, but the tube part I'm going to cut slightly higher so that I can cope it for this. So we're going to cut it off both sides, then we'll unbolt it here, take it off. This part that's still left to the top here we'll cut out. We'll sand this to make this as if it's never been there, and then when we put it back on, that will drop down. The plate will weld onto here the same as it is now, and this tube here should drop into the cope that we put. The cope of course will be that way on, not crosswise. Will drop into there. Now for this end, let me walk around here. The saddle hooks onto a little piece here. So if I just drop this down, the saddle is going to catch on this piece here, which is actually casting that's brazed onto the frame. So we're going to have to cut this off so that the saddle, as well as this frame, because it's no point leaving the saddle up here if the frame's dropped down, because what we want to do is lower the saddle height. So we're going to cut that off, and then we'll grind it away and pretty that up. So when we come back to put it on, this tube and the corresponding tube on this side, because they are held by the suspension units and everything, are going to be right where they should be. We'll just drop this subframe onto them. We'll have this piece bolted in, and we'll see where that goes onto the frame. Shorten it, and then we'll weld that onto the frame there. We can tack these up. Actually, I think with the mudguard off, I should be able to weld all these in situ without any problem. I can get it. Yeah, I'll be able to get it the insides and I can get it the outsides. Everything will be fine. Then, with that welded newly on there and this on here, the only other thing to do will be then this mudguard will be too long. It's got cutouts at the bottom on the other side for the chain and here for the exhaust to go through, but obviously when we drop that, now I may have to kick this up a little bit more to keep it looking good, because there's only, where did I measure, 2.5 inches of travel on these Hagen units, and there's 6 inches in there. So that would well be alright, but as I say, I don't want it to be too flat. The look's got to be up slightly. So let me take this mudguard off, and then I'll show you how we're going to decide how much to take off this. Okay, so let's have a look what's what. Two little pieces of information for you while I get my stuff here. I just looked. COG stands for count of, I've forgotten already, God, my memory's so. Something over ground. What is it? Course over ground. Right, and if any of you are worried about this pivoting because of it being on the wheel and all the rest of it, the wheel is, I've got it jacked up in the centre. The wheel's just to say touching, so there's no upward force on this at all. Alright, so let's have a look, see what we've got here. Good old fashioned. So the narrowest bit, actually the narrowest bit is here, because there it goes off. It's not actually on top of this, it's over there. So this is the narrowest bit of the lot. Right? I've put the side cover on here. This side cover sticks up slightly more. So we're going to take this as our narrowest point. Because we don't want to do it so that it fits on this side, and then when we put it on it won't fit on the other side. So yeah, actually you can see this oil tank curves down like that, whereas the other side doesn't. So alright, what have we got here? We have got 1 5/16. So I reckon we can drop this 1.25 inches and we'll be fine. Because this maybe we'd only better drop it 1 1/8 inches to be on the safe side. Let's make a note so we don't forget. 1 1/8 inch is all we're coming down. Now then, next thing. As I say, I've got this set on a stand. I've just checked it crosswise. Come on now, I just checked you and you were 0. Alright, so that tube is 0. I checked the other side, that is 0 as well. So we're all level when we're drawing lines. So our first line, look, is going to be that one there. And then we want to come down 1 1/8 inches. That's a 16th, that's an 1/8. Now that of course doesn't look anything like level, but yep, that's going to be fine. So I'll go and measure that. Now as I say, what we're going to do is we're going to cut this there, but we're actually going to cut this a little bit higher to make the cope. So I'm going to go and mark to the side, then I'm going to go and get a blanket, cover all this so we don't have sparks hitting the paintwork, things like that. Then I'm going to get a cut off tool and we'll cut that off both sides, and then we'll unbolt it at the top. So let me do that. Actually, I just thought of a more accurate way to measure this with a caliper. So this is 820 thou, both sides. I just measured that. So I took it to that, zeroed it, and then put in 1 1/8 inch. And there we are, look. So let me do that over this side as well, and then put a pencil mark. Perfect. Right, well, we're all set. Let's see if I can do this. That is going at you, isn't it? Well, that's not much of a cut-off wheel, is it? Probably had the bike too high there, so I wasn't getting it at the right angle. Let's try again. Okay, now I'll get it back on that side. I had to finish this off with a hacksaw, the last little bit. But anyway, that's what we're going to do, broken discs notwithstanding. So let me carry on and finish that off. So that's it cut through. Actually, what I did the other side, and I used a hacksaw in the end, was I just cut it off. And what I'm going to do is go down a little bit on this. But we can work on this to get it level and it'll be fine. There's a bush in here, by the way. If any of you ever take one of these off and are banging away wondering why it won't come out, there's a bush that goes through. Alright, so there's that off there. Now, as I say, I'll cut a little bit off. Hang on, I'm always doing this, aren't I? Can you see? Yeah. So as I say, what I did here, I didn't try to cut it at two levels. I cut it at the upper level, and I'll take a little bit out of there to match this side, and then we're going to put a bit of a cope, as I say, into there to fit it on. So let me go over there, cut these off and sand them round nicely. Right, I still have to do these two to get them exactly right, but I've taken this piece off, and this bend is put on as a second piece because they didn't even weld that there. They didn't weld it very well there either. So let me put just the bolt through there. Now the back end's going to drop down a little bit when I do the cope and that. So that's going to be where it is. Now I've brought the saddle over. These cost, well actually I'll just probably take those off their spacers. Anyway, what I want to show you here is, see, that won't go, that's why that's got to come off. Can't get the saddle on. So let me cut this off. I'm just going to do that with a hacksaw actually. I'll cut it off right back here. And let me cope these and make sure they're exactly the same and level. And then we'll try that again. Still haven't done these, so they'll drop down a little bit more, but, excuse me, I've cut that piece down. It's actually in there, touching the frame with the bolt through. So I can maybe move this back a little. See, as it lowers, it comes back because of the curve of the thing. But, excuse me again. See, it's this side that I have to... Oh, I think that's fine. That little gap there is nothing. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yes, that's going to work. That looks so much better than that bloody thing being right up here in the air and a big gap. And hang on a second. Now this is only a fraction higher than it's going to be there. But don't forget, I've only just got the wheel touching, so the whole thing will drop down a little bit. That's more like it. We're probably going to have a 31-inch seat height. That is acceptable. I think it was about 33. Well, no, it can't have been. But it certainly was well over 32. So, yes. Good. All right. Let me, well, actually, it's time for a sandwich and a cup of tea. Let me come and cope them out and get it dropped down exactly right. And then we'll... start welding. And then do you know what, because this is only going to burn up here, I think I'll probably just wheel this in the paint room, mask everything and just paint, touch those pieces up and the bit here. I don't think I need to repaint the whole thing. That's good, not having to take all that off. It's made the job a lot easier. Alright, sandwich time. Right, before I do the mudguard and then take the frame off for painting, I thought I'd have a look at the clutch. Now, this is the clutch operating mechanism. It screws in, cable goes on that end, and here there is this thing which has a tiny little ball bearing in. Well, I don't know, there's no broken bit in there, so I don't know, a little bit of brain fit. Oh, I'm getting dirty again. I must have put on, not noticed, maybe if it was that way around. I maybe never noticed, but as you can see, that's snapped off. And actually when I took it off, there was like a little nail holding it in. So I didn't need to buy the whole thing, but when I went on Peter Quick's website, BSA unit singles, he had the whole doodad there. And it wasn't much, so I thought, oh bugger it, I'll just buy the whole thing. So there's the new one of those, which as you can see is in one piece. So I'll put that on, put that little pin on. It's got one of these little clampy things, which is exactly right by the parts book. So we'll put some grease in there, put that in, we'll put that on and see if that makes any difference. As expected, when I come to put this together, see how that hole is to one side? That one's dead centered. That one's to one side. So the pin, when you put it on there, the pin won't line up. So let me sort that out. So there's the new one put in, and it does feel much better. Oh yeah, that's more like it. Alright, so let me put that side cover on, and then we'll see about shortening the mudguard. Alright, let's see what we need to do at the mudguard. So what I'm going to do is, this mudguard has a mounting at the back. I'm going to put that one on and then see how far out these are. Hang on. They line up. That shouldn't be happening, surely. Will that one go in there? Because this is one of those jobs which is so much easier. Hang on, I'm going to put these in the top because they're easy to get at. Come on. I've got rubber grommets on here to give, seeing as they're alloy mud guards, just to give them a little bit of a rubber mounting. Now they should go on there because they came off there. What the hell? In about a second, where's that? There it is. Whenever things are going in at opposing angles, there we go. There's always a sort of point at which you can get them in, and whereas if you put one all the way in, it can pull the thing over. There we go. Now then, let's have a look at this. Smaller hands. Oh, I'll take the back wheel out just to put this in. That's catching on there. I just checked this, it was level. It looks fine. Just catching on one side here. You fiddle around with this, I don't want you to just sit there watching this. Well, there's another little mystery. I don't understand why, but that's gone on. I needed to put a little cutout on this side of the mudguard for this mounting here. It seems to be in further, so I already had a cutout there. I just needed to make that slightly bigger, And I've got the bottom bolt in, and I've got a fist's worth of clearance all the way back to here. So there's a job I don't have to do. Alright, I've already sanded this a bit. I'm going to, where am I? Can you see it, or do I have to swing around? I'll swing around a little bit and zoom you in. And focus you a little bit. I'm going to grind that somewhat. You can see the brace in there. So I'm going to grind that a little bit just to make it look nicer. And then we'll go, and as I say, I'll put blankets over everything, and I'll just drop the suspension units. Because every time I move you, then I start talking and you can't see what I'm talking about. Back again. So as I say, I'll put blankets in here over the wheel. I just drop the suspension units down because I only have this little bit to do on each side, and that little bit there, actually I could almost brush that on. It's under the tank, everything like that. I just need to make sure it won't rust or anything. Alright, so let me go and do that bit of grinding. I'm going to take it through into the other half of the workshop to do that. I'll cover everything over, but then I won't be scattering iron filings in this end of the room. And then, well, that'll take me till lunchtime. Bit of paint on that this afternoon. And today's what, Thursday? Then Saturday morning, put it all back together. Oh, we've still got to look at the speedometer. So Saturday, when it's all together, I'll put it up on the lift stand, the jack thing that goes underneath, so I can spin the back wheel. We'll disconnect the cable at the Speedo, put it in, get it running, put it in gear, and make sure the inner turns, and then we can find out whether it's the gearbox end or the Speedo end that's not working. Alright, that is painted up. Got one slight bit on this side that I might have to just touch up, but other than that it's perfect. So let me put the all the wiring back on and put the mudguard in and stuff like that, and then we can have a look at the Speedo. Alright, so I forgot about this. We've dropped this an inch and an eighth, so we're going to take an inch off the seat bracket thing there. Let me do that. There, now that looks better. Let's see if we did any damage to the electronics. Shouldn't have done, but no, we didn't. Right, so let me jack this up so the back wheel's off the ground, so I can put it in gear, start and put it in gear, and then I'll disconnect this and we'll see if this end of the Speedo cable is turning, and that'll check the gearbox end on the back wheel. So let me get that organised. Right, back wheel's up in the air, so I can put it in gear. I'll put a little bit of tape on there so that we can see if it goes round and round. Okay. Wait, you little bugger. Well, let's put it in gear. then, actually I'm pleased about that because I've probably got a couple of the gearbox ends, but I don't have another clock that'll fit up here. So, sandwich time, and then we've got to take this back wheel out. Well, you can't see, can you? Then we've got to take the back wheel out and look at that gearbox. So that's all the Speedo drive comprises of. Well, this comes apart. In here, you see there's a nub there, one over there, and they're fitting notches on the wheel. And then there's a worm gear, and that goes round. It turns that. This runs, there's a little bronze bush in this end, and that screws in that end. So I've given it all a good clean out, or I am giving it a good clean out, and then we'll put it back together and see what happens. Right, well, one cheese and tomato sandwich, and actually I found that our local brewery, Ithaca Brewery, makes a nut brown ale which is very nice, so I've been drinking that. Okay, so cleaned all this out, so I took it apart. There's an old bit of, I use this actually to check speedos. Where's my screwdriver gone? So let's see, can you see it? Yes. So let's think, the wheel goes around that way. Now that looks alright, but then see, doesn't turn. So I guess the worm gear is worn. So I had a search about. Funnily enough, it didn't take me that long. I went out and I found this one. So we'll talk about this one in a second, but we'll put that in there. So that one works a treat. Alright, let's go over to the bike because we've got to do a measurement. So this original one, which came on the C15, actually says on it gear ratio 2:1. So this one has a label on it. It used to say something on that, but you can't read it anymore. However, this, as I say, is the original C15 one, but the original C15 had 17-inch back wheel. This has now got an 18-inch back wheel. But all the drives and clocks I've got came off B25s, B44s, B50s, C25s. So in other words, they all came off bikes with an 18-inch rear wheel. So this gearbox and this Speedo go together with an 18-inch wheel, so we should be right. So the only thing we've got to check is, will it fit? Well, it's the right size to go on there. Goes down into the doodads. So what we need to check, and for that I'll need the other little tip ruler. Hold on. Right, all I need to know is that it isn't fatter on this side. So we'll take a measurement. Doesn't matter where we measure it from, it's a relative measurement. So if I put that across there and check it here, just to the edge of the chrome, that is 1 inch. And the original one, come on, go in the little slots. Is 1 inch. So although they changed the look of it, they obviously kept the dimensions the same. Although you'll notice this is a lower drive, it doesn't matter. Alright, so let me put that on and put the wheel back in. Actually, it just struck me I didn't need to have the engine running in gear just to check that. So let me spin the back wheel and see what happens. That's more like it. Okay, but I'll put that in the clock and then we'll start it up and see if we get some speed. Alright then, keep your fingers crossed. I don't have to buy a new clock as well. So we can fold that up. Switch it on. It's in neutral to start it. Well, sort of. I don't know whether that's exactly right or not, but we'll see when I take it out for a ride next time. Just get this back into neutral. There we go. Well, I think that looks worlds better without that huge gap there. Okay, I guess I've got to get myself in gear and go and get registered and sold. And then we'll have a little bit of space and I'll have some funds for our next project. So that's it for this week. Actually, I'll be pleased. This has basically started first kick every time I've tried it while I've been fiddling on, so that's good. And I finally found out that if I disconnect everything and just have the electronic part in there, the generator and that, it doesn't do it any harm. But I did disconnect everything, so just in case any of you have an Electrics World outfit, a unit I should say, not outfit, I certainly was able to TIG weld on the frame without damaging anything there. But as I say, everything was disconnected. Okay, so as I say, that's it for this week. Next week is new project, so we'll find out what it is. We'll go through the plans. We'll look at the stuff, and we'll go from there. So until next week, you stay safe and enjoy yourselves.